Jambo, everybody! In this episode of Parkgoers Go, we interview a cast member who used to work at Kilimanjaro Safaris. So let's hop on that truck and let's go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Parkgoers Go, your go-to podcast for all things theme parks. Today we have a great episode and a great follow-up to last week's episode, which was Theme Park Safaris. Today we are actually interviewing somebody who worked at Kilimanjaro Safaris. So let's hop right into it and get to that interview. And today we have past cast member Andrew. Andrew, how are you doing? Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk about, the time being out there at Kilimanjaro. It was a wild time, honestly.
So let's get a little bit of a background of you in particular. Tell us around what time did you work at Kilimanjaro Safari and how did you get this job?
So I was at Kilimanjaro Safari way back in the ancient times of 2013 to 2014. And I was actually part of the college program. So I got to kind of pick what I wanted to be in terms of like categories. And then out of some serendipity, out of the hat, they chose Kilimanjaro Safaris.
Yeah, no, college program is a big one on this podcast. I'm pretty sure everybody who we've interviewed so far has started out with a college program, which is good. It's a good place to start. So tell us a little bit about what Kilimanjaro Safari is, but also what the story was when you worked there.
So the story by this point that I had jumped in had changed. So Kilimanjaro Safaris is a ride over at Animal Kingdom within the Africa area in which you and all of the other people on the truck, because you go in these big, large trucks that hold about 40 people, and you are going out on an actual safari. Because they actually do. Disney maintains a reserve, in fact, 2 reserves, where they keep animals from Africa, whether it's zebras, giraffes, lions, rhino. It's quite diverse in the amount of animals that they have there and their environments, too.
So what is it? What, you said 2 reserves. Can you elaborate on this?
So you can kind of see it when you go on the ride. So technically speaking, there's one reserve, which is the ride path, in which that's where you get to see all the animals and such like that. But there's actually a second reserve, Reserve B, which is behind it. So when you go on the ride, there is a part where there's like a bend and there's a bridge you have to cross. And I don't know if they still do like the sort of rocky, like rickety thing, because back in the day, the story that they had was that you were on this reserve and you were in the truck, the Simba 1. And there was the warden there, Warden Wilson. And, when you're on this reserve, suddenly poachers would show up and you were kind of part of the adventure of these wardens, if you will, or the safari guide to catch these poachers. So when you go to this bridge that you cross, it's near where the male elephant is typically held. That bridge, if you look directly to your left, there's like a really large hill and opening in the trees. That's actually a complete second reserve where animals can be. Because while the reserve is very open, there is essentially 2 sets of animals that will change throughout the day.
Okay, that's very interesting. And this previous episode, we just started talking about Kilimanjaro Safaris and how the stories have changed and all this different stuff. But I didn't realize that there were 2 different reserves. Now, the rickety bridge, was that up and running when you were working?
Yes. So thematically, the bridge was still there. And how it worked is, as long as this automated motion sensor didn't detect any concerns, so if a car was going too fast or if there was some sort of malfunction, on the right-hand side, there are a lot of trees. And obscured in the tree is kind of like a traffic signal. And if it was green, that means you're good to go and you can cross the bridge. Red means stop. And if it's green with flashing, it means that you can proceed, but the bridge is out. Like for some reason or another, it's not going to go this time. So you just cross the bridge. But the bridge, what it does, it's essentially on a large tilt platform and it moves the truck left and right and kind of simulates a little, for lack of a better term, kind of like a little earthquake. And, as soon as you cross it, it doesn't take very long. you're able to go right around the bend, and then you get to see all the elephants because that's where they're typically housed, or not housed, but that's where they roam about. I think they still have it. I don't know if they still run it though, because it's very finicky.
I did manage to score a backstage tour of Kilimanjaro Safari. I guess the latest was 2018. And at that point, they were saying it's kind of a hit or miss. So I don't know if they just stopped it altogether at this point. But back in 2018, it was still working. So who knows?
Yeah, my last trip, it was to, I want to say in like 22 or 3.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that lingers on from when the ride first started. What's even funnier about it is that if you're on the ride path, there's actually a couple old things from the ride that are still there that they've just obscured. So
Okay.
like when you get to the last section, God, what was that part called? I don't remember what that zone was called, but it's where all the attics are. They're essentially white antelope with very like curved horns. So around that path, there is the part where you encounter the poachers, and the old Jeep is still there with like the rails. They just obscured it.
Oh, that's interesting. And I do want to chat a little bit more about that original story a little later on. But for right now, what was your role? Like, what were you guys called? Because like on Jungle Cruise, they have skippers. What were you guys called?
Safari guides.
Safari guides. Okay, simple.
Very
I like that.
straightforward.
Yeah. Okay, safari guides. So you're a safari guide, and you have work that day. Can you take me through a typical day of a safari guide to the best of your memory?
Yeah, so you roll up pretty early on because Animal Kingdom is one of the parks that does open up pretty early, or at least it takes a bit of time for preparation. So I was getting there pretty early in the morning. Depending on if it was like a magic hour day, I was there at like 7 or 6 to make sure that we're ready to go for the safari. Now the safari does open up a little later because it is susceptible to daylight conditions, and generally speaking, we follow the animals' schedules. You know, we can't always rouse them in the middle and kind of break their patterns. So what we would do is there's a lot in the back of Animal Kingdom where all the trucks are held. And we would go in there and we would essentially go up to this like machine, this computer, and it would tell us what our role was going to be. So either you were assigned to safari about in the trucks, or you were responsible for a specific station on the actual like entrance to the ride and exit. So whether that's being at the front entrance, welcoming people in and helping with fast passes back when that was really big. You were sort of guiding the crowds to the lines, or you were also at Pram, which was where they took care of all of the stroller parking and management of those kind of things, because there was 2 lots that people could stop and drop their things. And then you would, of course, help with the loading and unloading of passengers. So they had their loading docks, and then we had the unloading areas. So once you had your position assigned, going to the zones, easy peasy. But if you were assigned to be a safari guide in a truck, you would have a truck number to which it's located in like the front bumper of each truck. And you would go to that truck and make sure that you do a quick check over, make sure everything's functional, everything's okay. And you would just wait until the sort of rollout would happen, where there'd be a second inspection. And we would go down the essentially backstage pathways that would get us to the ride path proper. After you got there, there'd be a turnoff into the ride path, and you'd queue up, and then everybody would be waiting lined up as the guests start to come in. They get onto the loading area, they board the truck, and away you go on a safari. Each safari was roughly 22 minutes, containing of multiple regions or areas. The last one kind of escapes me, but I know that the beginning one was the Safi River. So from there, you can see Greater Kudu and Bongos. And you'll note that as you progress through, there are these little chains that are on the ground. So the chains serve a lot of different purposes. First off, they make a lot of a racket when a truck goes over it. So that helps kind of create like a sound, an auditory barrier for the animals, because they're pretty much able to freely roam at any area they're in. It also helps because they're so like fine, like there's so many of them. The animals don't like to cross them either. They'll get tangled up and stuff like that, theoretically. So they don't really go near it ever. You'd leave the Safi River, you'd come around the corner past the large baobab tree, and then come down the hill into the reserve proper. From the reserve proper, you'll be able to see a lot of different types of animals like Thompson's gazelle, giraffes. You could see eland, water buck. They added hyenas there in the tail end. And eventually you swoop around the corner, past the male elephant, go across the rickety bridge, and then you're in the elephant area before eventually going into the area where the cheetahs are. They're up on like a little bit of a hillside. And then you go around the rocks where you have the little plateau where the lions are. And usually this is also where the white rhino and ostrich hang out. And then you come back down into where the attics are, cross another sort of water effect, and boom, you're at the unloading dock. And that's your 22-minute ride.
That's crazy. I could visualize it as you were saying it, going through each one of the things. Now, the thing I do remember the most about the ostrich part, now that you bring it up, is the fact that there were eggs. They always pointed out the eggs. And that was, I'm guessing they were props?
100%.
Okay.
So they weren't real. Ostriches they do lay eggs. We did have some of that going on, but that's all done by Animal Programs, AP. So, if the ostriches have actual nests and they just tend to those.
Okay. So let's say you're en route and then you see something that looks out of the ordinary or something like that. Did you guys have an obligation to call things in, like specifically with the animals, or I guess even with the track? And who did you report that to, if you did?
So yeah, we were absolutely obligated. A thing you're probably well aware of are the keys, right? And one of the most important keys is safety. So when it comes down to it, if there's anything unusual for the ride, we will absolutely report it in. So when you are at the unloading section, there's this little house on the hill on the other side. That is essentially Safari Command. That is where the other Safari drivers are kind of hanging out, waiting to swap out. Because typically when you're on Safari, you're doing anywhere between an hour and a half to maybe 2 hours shifts as you're in the truck. And that depends upon a lot of different conditions, whether it's, number of cast members available. Weather is a big thing. We will sometimes cut the safaris so that way us other safari drivers can get hydrated, because the Florida weather can sometimes be very hot. And one of my most trusty things on the ride was having a water bottle, because it was both hot and I talked a lot.
Makes sense.
There's a secondary Safari Command that's actually inside of the wall at the loading dock. So whenever we're reporting in, we actually had radios, and we would report directly to the central line, to where both of these command centers, if you will, would have their respective supervisors and managers. And then we'd be able to roll it in or report it in. And it depends on the circumstance too, of the priority. And we had radio codes that were for just something abnormal, and then also something abnormal with animals.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, I also want to applaud you. You are the first person on this podcast in general to bring up the 4 keys, which is, the keys, the Disney keys. So that's that's fun. But you also did touch on something that I love to ask people specifically who work on attractions, which is the way that the rides themselves run. Now, we've already established that you guys run off of trucks, but one thing that is fairly common in all theme park rides is that there's something equivalent to a tower position. So one position that kind of looks over everything, kind of like, the ring master of the whole shindig. Now, would that be the command center that you're referring to? Is that kind of like what their job was? And did any cast members have that position, or was that considered more safety critical, where you needed more experience?
Yes, you would need more experience. You would have to be in a position of management.
So
yeah, there was those two. There was also an office in the back lot. So there was a lot of different ways to engage with it. So yeah, that's where all the stuff is run, and how they kind of make sure that cast members are where they need to be, and we're doing swaps when we need to do it, and things like that.
So were there cameras throughout the ride, or was it more reliant on you guys as the guides, what you were seeing, and the walkie-talkies?
It was mostly on visual confirmation on the walkie-talkie.
I guess that makes sense. And it does seem like, or at least a decent amount of times that I've ridden the ride, I have seen some people in smaller, I guess, pickup trucks going out to refill the feeders. So I guess there is, besides you guys in a constant stream, there are other people who have eyes on it. So I guess that makes sense.
Yep, that's AP. That's animal programs. They're the ones that are in the trucks.
Now, you had an operational guide. Was there at any point in there, did it start to lay down like emergency protocol for certain things? I mean, you're dealing with wild animals, so obviously that takes the stakes up. But were there any like emergency protocols when it came to like if there was an animal in the ride path, or if, you know, somebody left the truck or anything like that? That you can speak on. If you can't speak on it, that's fine. But
so specifically, if there are animals in the ride path, you just report it in. You would call command, if you will, and you would advise them that X animal is in the ride path. And they don't really move the animals. The animals have to move themselves, with the exception of the addicts, because they always like to get in the way. But you just wait. When it comes to any other emergency, you were supposed to just essentially continue on, unless it was of dire safety to the passengers of the car. So if someone comes off, let's say someone leaves the truck, there is a code for that. We report that in. And from that point, that's where like animal programs and stuff will step in, and they react very fast. But we as safari guides are meant to remain in the vehicle and move on.
And that does make sense. I would imagine the biggest area would be the part where the giraffe is. And as you pointed out, there's like a command post fairly close. So I would imagine at any given point, somebody could act, or I guess the AP can access any area fairly quickly.
Yes. So 2 things about the trucks. Number one, our trucks are not on rails. We can go wherever we please. There is a limiter on like the speed in which you can drive. So nobody's out there like, you know, doing donuts, but you're pretty much stuck to the ride path. That's where you're supposed to be. AP has the ability to essentially go wherever they want. So they could easily jump half the reserve by going over that big hill on the main reserve and just be there.
So let's chat a little bit about the ride itself and the original story. Now, as far as my research showed, the original story of Simba 1 and Little Red and Big Red ended the year before you got there. Is that correct? 2012?
I believe so, yes. That's sunset, its final safari. However, that would not be the end of Big Red, and well, it would be the end of Big Red, but not Little Red.
Ooh, tell us more.
Little Red, to this day, is still operational and doing his animatronic best in the back lot. So what they did is, after they shut down that show, he was moved in front of the cast building, hooked up. He's still in the back of his Jeep, and he's rocking his head back and forth at the cast building.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
So only
still a cast member.
Yeah, so only Kilimanjaro people can see him?
Anybody that can go back there can, because that's also where the Africa cafeteria is.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, Little Red's he's just back over there. He's just rocking his head back and forth. I hope he's still there to this day, because it was always a nice touch.
Yeah. No, that's pretty neat. Also, another thing that did happen in Kilimanjaro was that, or at least at the time I was down there, they had the nighttime safari. When you were working there, did they ever do like late night safaris?
So late night safaris is a little bit of a cursed item. So they did try to practice them while I was there, but this was their 3rd attempt at it.
Oh boy.
They've never really been, I mean, granted now they might be, I don't know if they've tried again, considering everything's open longer now because of Avatar, right. But they were never very popular. Part of the reason was because of the animals, weren't always keen on being present when it's night. They're either that or they're sleeping. So there were a couple of approaches that were being tested. So I got to try my hand at some nighttime safaris, but what they were using at the time was they were trying to use like what they called twilight spotlights. So they're lights that were dim enough that they wouldn't like disturb the animals, but like bright enough that you could see them. The other thing that they tried to do is they tried to encourage some animals to be more active during like the evening times. So they would like shift around their meals a little bit and try to, encourage that effect. But animals are animals at the end. So it's not exactly, it is a science, but it's not always one that is, picture perfect. So yeah, I did get a chance to test it. We were not fully operational nighttime safaris then. I will tell you though, when it is nighttime there, it is dark.
You hit on a good point with the Pandora when that opened. I remember very specifically they were talking about the bioluminescence, right? And so they wanted the people there. And then they also came out with that nighttime show that did not do well. And I don't think it lasted a year. It was something with petals in the water and all that kind of stuff.
Rivers of Light.
That's it. You got it. Yeah. It's Rivers of Light. That's the one. Yeah.
I remember that too.
I remember going there then, and they had the nighttime safari. And do you know what they did on the savannah part in order to trick the animals? They had this giant LED screen that was supposed to simulate sunset. And it was crazy. It was really crazy looking because you could barely see it because of all the foliage, but it was huge. And it was just, you couldn't really see much. Like it didn't emit a lot of light, but I remember thinking that was crazy. But the thing that you brought up, the Twilight things sound like they would be more effective than a giant TV. But
I would agree. They were essentially fixed spotlights. So they could set them up at key points in order to project that low light. And it works on some areas. I don't think the Savannah was ever a good spot for them. But like one thing I didn't mention earlier when I mentioned the Safi River was the actual river part where the hippos and the crocodiles and the cormorants are. That was always a good spot, but that's because that area is more self-contained. And they also had ways to like alter the ride path too. So you'd be able to like skip Mr. Rickety Bridge at night because nobody wanted to like do that.
But the Rickety Bridge at night sounds like kind of fun. Is it like a safety thing?
Yeah, it was a safety thing. And also because it was a way to sort of cut some of the time, because the problem you have with the bridge is that I keep mentioning the male elephant. That's all that's over there is just him. And sometimes he's just sleeping. He's not really into anything. So it was determined that would not be as entertaining, even though obviously the objective of the safari is to kind of, give people an experience of animals. But there's also a level of entertainment because this is Disney World. And that was determined just not a good addition.
That makes sense. Now, I do have some, I don't know if these are rapid fire questions. The other two hosts of this podcast, I asked them, I said, do you have any questions about Kilimanjaro Safari for when I talked to Andrew? And they sent me some. So these might be rapid fire. They might not be. If you want to elaborate on some of the answers that you have, feel free to. But I'm just going to list them off. All right. First question. How often do they get new animals?
Animal additions are always, it's a very difficult thing because animals can, even the herbivores, they can be very territorial and they're not very keen on new entries that often. And sometimes those that were a little misbehaving would then be sent off to Dak Lodge because that was like the tertiary reserve where animals that, were on the reserve had been retired, or maybe the troublemakers were put there because it's a very different environment. Specifically, there was a male water buck that was just kind of a bully. And the males have curved horns, and they've got these rather sharp hooves. They actually injured one of the greater elands, so he got sentenced to Dak Lodge. But the new animals mostly come from their breeding programs. One of the most exciting things when I was there was that one of the white rhinos had a kid. And that was an incredible moment because it's not easy for those specific animals in captivity typically to have kids. So it was awesome to kind of be a part of that and see that happen. Much to the chagrin of the male rhino, who was kind of angry all the time. And the female rhinos would form up to defend the baby, and he would just be kind of pouty about it.
And I feel like you bringing that up, I mean, making the rounds all the time, were you able to like know which animal was which? And did you know them by name?
The Great Big Book of Animals, not to quote Stanley, but the animal programs does have an identification process, and they do name them. So none of them are named like Hippo 1, Simbo 1. And that's just for the event. They all had identifications. So specifically, the male rhino, his name was Frankie, is what his name was. And yeah, you kind of learn their mannerisms. I mean, if anything, while the idea is that you're projecting being a safari guide, you do become one over time. You eventually learn the mannerisms of certain animals, who they are, their identifications. You learn their quirks as well. Like, again, I mentioned the addicts being the addicts. They are menaces. They would hang around at the tail end, and they love to kind of sit near the ride path because their area was a little small. Not small for them, but they like to congregate near the ride path. So they often block things, and that was also where animal programs would help feed them. So they kind of have gained this ability of just being a menace and blocking up the ride. So they had to end up moving some of the food where they were feeding them on like this little hill on the left. So that way they would kind of congregate up there.
That's pretty awesome. Now you did mention that back area where the animals would go. Is that the same area that you can see on the train to Rafiki's Planet Watch?
Yeah, you can see a portion of it from there.
Fantastic. Look at that. That's really cool. Yeah, I always wondered what that was. I figured that's where they, house some of the animals, but that's pretty neat. I like that.
Yeah, the animals have a lot of space. So, you need a lot of, if you're going to pretend to be like a full-blown reserve, you got to sell it. And we not only do we do it on that, we also do it in actual effect. So we really tried hard. I keep saying Disney Animal Programs really tried hard to really promote that environment for them.
And I mean, it shows. And I mean, hey, I think that ride itself made Animal Kingdom the largest theme park in the world.
Not to mention the whole park was designed on a much larger, like, for lack of a better term, floor plan. So everything is much wider to compensate for various animals and things like that. But it was also to compensate for guests. And it was one of the first parks to be fully wheelchair accessible.
That's awesome. I did not know that. That makes perfect sense too, thinking about the layout. All right. So the next question. This one said, did they let him do anything with the animals? I'm assuming they mean like, did you have any, program things where you could go check out the AP area or similar to like a backstage tour with the animals?
Not specifically available to cast members. Again, we didn't intermingle like that capacity. There are some old parts of the ride path that we could access. I did get to go up. There's like this sort of old rocky step that comes up to a high-rise-ish area on the tail end of the ride that I went with before, which was cool. But we generally do not enter the reserve on foot, and we don't really engage the animals in that capacity. The closest you can get to it is if you were a part of Wild Africa Trek.
Now, you said that you were able to walk different, travel to different parts. From your recollection, because I'm going off of old videos that I've had, at some point during the poacher storyline, there was a part where you drove through geysers and then you see like a Jeep driving behind some brush. Do you know anything about that?
Yep, that Jeep is still there.
It's still there.
It's on a rail system, and because it was like locked in, it took more effort to remove it than it would be to just cover it up. So they just added a ton of brush and foliage. They just expanded that further to keep it tied up.
Now, is that a part that the trucks still go through, or do they just go around it now?
Just go around it.
Okay.
You don't really engage with that at all.
Right.
In some cases, in the last part of it, because after you leave the attics, you kind of come around a bend, you go down a hill, and you kind of cross the river. Like that's supposed to be the big kind of climactic finish because you're supposed to pursue the poachers.
Right.
But now you just blaze through it. And what I mean by blaze, I mean by the maximum amount of speed you could go is about 7 miles per hour. So it seems fast because of the intelligent construction of the area.
Sure.
And the fact that there's a bit of a downhill and then there's like the water, but you are never clocking more than 7 or 8 at best. Okay. And even then, you're in full control. There's never like a sense of like danger or something. It just gets a little exciting at the end.
Right. Let's see. The next question. Do you have a script?
Yes. So what we have is essentially a guide on the animals, because one of the biggest parts of the ride for both guests and cast members is education.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to feel involved in the experience, to feel they're like on a real safari, and a part of a real safari is understanding the animals. So the way that it works for us as cast members is we are provided animal facts, and we are told, okay, so bear in mind, these X animals will be present. So if you see them and you're close to, like you can point them out or whatever, you can start to talk to them, give out facts about that. So you could specify like the giraffes. Oh, if you look over there, you see there's a herd of giraffe. There's actually 2 different species here, and you would point out the reticulated giraffe, which has different patterns on its fur than the Maasai giraffe. And you would lay out a couple of facts, and then you'd either go to the next animal or move on with the ride, because you were never idle really on the ride. You were always in a state of motion with only occasionally stopping. You had leeway when like opportunities presented itself. So like, hey, there's a whole bunch of congregation of giraffe, stop, get a shot. But you don't wait for anybody specific. You just stop, count a couple seconds and move on. The only time there's actual scripted parts besides where the animals are is when you pass certain features like the ostrich eggs nest or the termite mounds and stuff like that. Those you are obligated to say something, or actually the better way to phrase that is that you should be saying something but was never required. What it was is it was there to help sort of pad some of the attention if it was necessary. So like if you're on an open part of the reserve and there's like nothing around, these are things that you would point out.
And I would imagine that you would have at least enough information in there for if, something was on the ride path and you had to stall for a little bit. So that checks out.
I always kept about 4 or 5 facts in my back pocket. My favorite fact to this day that I still enjoy is just animal group names.
Oh,
because they're always so like different. It's like, oh yeah, those are blue-bellied cormorants. Those are called a float, or like that's a flamboyance of flamingo.
The flamboyant of flamingo is the one I always remembered, just because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I feel like that's the one thing they say every time. Besides also why they're the color pink. So that's that is a fun one. I like that one. And let's see, their last question was, have animals gotten out when you were there? Now, I did during my tour, and I would like you to, tell me if this is true or not. They did mention that during a thunderstorm, one of the cheetahs managed to get out of their immediate enclosure. But by the time, the people who needed to be there showed up, the cheetah wasn't moving because it was so horrified. Okay, so this is true. Okay, tell me about this.
For this entire for
oh
that
my
specific
gosh
thunderstorm.
Tell me all about it.
It was late part of summer, and there was an absolute monsoon of a storm. And as a cast member, as a safari guide, the ride don't stop. We go on, and there is very limited protection from the storm. So you're in the thick of it. But ultimately, this storm was coming down, and visibility was very, very poor. And the animals, of course, were very frazzled. This was a huge storm, and giraffes were running about, and we had to keep getting stopped because trees were breaking, like stuff was falling into the ride path. So one of the crowning achievements at Kilimanjaro Safaris is there was this massive tree on the hill over by the sort of like little lodge thing that the Wild Africa truck uses. That was yoinked out of the ground in this storm. Just ripped right out. It fell over, and they actually left it there for a couple weeks after because they allowed the animals to strip it down. The giraffes had a field day because they could eat all the leaves, but it ripped it out. And it was quite a sight because the elephants they were all running around too. Some of them rolling in the mud, some of them just sort of, I wouldn't say the word stampede, but they were booking because they were really freaked out by the storm. And there's very little we could do about it. But it's also kind of beneficial for people. You're getting wet, but it does give some opportunity for some cool photos ultimately. And as a safari guide, you kind of take it in stride. You're gonna talk about the animals and just keep people engaged and just kind of calm. But specifically, one of the cheetahs did a very unusually uncheetah thing, which is the cheetah liked to climb. And you normally don't see the cheetahs leave the ground much. And this cheetah kind of found a way to kind of clamber up on this little tree area and loved hanging out there because there's a lot of shade. So then the cheetah took an extra step further and found out that the one branch was rather pliable and long. So the cheetah made a running start across this branch and kind of diving board the fence. Now, cheetahs are big cats. They are animals that can be dangerous, but generally speaking, a cheetah does not wish to ever engage with anybody. The biggest thing about cheetahs is that they're fast, and they can only run for about 10 seconds before they're completely gassed, and they're not there to fight animals. They get knocked over by scavengers all the time, by hyenas and stuff like that. So in this case, this poor cheetah had just done the greatest achievement of its life by making this massive jump and just didn't know what to do. So it was looking around. And then the unfortunate part is the white rhinos are also in this area. And while the cheetahs are there, they're not really connected because the cheetahs have this sort of low, like, slope. So that way it's low to the earth. And there's also a fence line, right?
Right.
So the rhinos come rolling up and they see the cheetah and they go into defensive mode. Now you would think rhinos would like charge or something like that, right? And that's not what they did. Instead, the rhinos came in a little group here and like single file and surrounded the cheetah and then plopped down their horns facing inward. So now the cheetah, who was already shocked that he got where he was and was so far from home, you know, right over there, that he didn't know what to do. Now he's surrounded on all sides by these rhino. And the truck in front of me had called in that the cheetah was out. And AP came over and just got the cat because the rhinos didn't do anything. They just created a phalanx and sat there. And then AP was able to get them to move. And then they were able to acquire the cheetah very easily. The cheetah, again, was in a state of shock. And they've got the cheetah back into its environment.
Wow. That's better. That's that's better than what I remember being told. That's fantastic. I mean, it's not fantastic. That's, you know, sad for the cheetah, but, you know, good for the cheetah at the end.
Yeah, the cheetah wasn't harmed. The rhinos weren't harmed. I guess the rhinos just were also happy because they kind of stuck around a little bit longer over there. Just to avoid the rain. Yeah. But yeah, it was definitely like a moment.
That's awesome. I mean, that's awesome that you were able to witness that. That's really cool. So that's enough of Logan and Nathaniel's questions. Now I'm going to ask you some of my favorite questions that I like to ask guests on this podcast. Do you have any fun facts that you would like to throw out there that you think listeners would like to listen to? I mean, you've already given us so many fun facts this whole episode. So if you tapped out, I understand.
Well, facts are definitely a safari guy's, you know, lifelong thing. So yeah. I love spitting out some of those facts. Let's see what people be interested in. Yes, it's a reserve. No, the animals are not all freely available, as much as people may let you think. The lions do not freely roam the reserve. One of the reasons that they hang around where they do is because Disney employs a very similar tactic that other modern zoos use, where there are cooling or heated plates on certain parts of it to help like promote the lions being present. So I've always found that to be interesting. So if you don't catch them there, they're there. They're probably just in the back kind of chilling. But they are encouraged to put on a show for everybody. The ostrich eggs I already mentioned. Those are not real, as much as people would tell you, nor are the termite mounds. The joke about them being as tough as concrete is because that's exactly what they're made out of. Okay. But that is a real fact as well. What else? Yes, if you want to see more animals, Dak Lodge is, again, the sort of tertiary reserve where some of the rough and rowdy ones go. And I'm pretty sure that a good chunk of them are still alive to this day from when I was there. So keep an eye out for the water buck, because I'm pretty sure a lot of them got transferred there. I believe that there is more bongos now, because some of them, there was a baby bongo that was there, and that was a huge deal. Yes, I have encountered some celebrities while I was there. And to my understanding, it's Neil Patrick Harris's favorite ride. He would ride it multiple times in a single day. So that's kind of an external fact about the ride. Goodness gracious. No, I think that I might round it up, honestly.
Well, it's funny.
Did go in a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny that you did bring up celebrities, because that is one of the that is one of the final questions I have. Have you had any celebrity sightings, or at least a celebrity on one of your trucks?
Yes and yes.
Ooh, would you like to tell?
So as I mentioned, Neil Patrick Harris, I'm pretty sure it's one of his favorite rides. He rode it 3 times when he was in town in the same day. I got to I got to do safaris for Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy. I got to do one with Boys to Men
all of
and
them?
Sinbad. Yeah, all of them.
Oh wow.
Sinbad was also on one of mine, which was fun.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah, sports people come in all the times as well, like the Miami Lightning for and then was it the Orlando Magic? They were there.
Yeah.
George Lucas. George Lucas was really into the sort of setup of the safari. So he was very he loved to ask questions. And specifically, he liked the savannah, again, with the house on the hill. I think that inspired him or something, because he was very much enamored with that lodge. Who else? Ariana Grande. Yeah. Bruce Willis. He was there with full-blown baseball cap. He was hiding. Yeah, I mean, God, the list goes on, because a lot of times, again, you have the opportunity to either be part of or see these individuals, and it's kind of interesting. I do think that the most interesting was probably Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy, mostly because being familiar with Eddie Murphy and just seeing that like Eddie Murphy smile in person and that like infectious laugh was like something else.
Now, did they have the whole truck to themselves, or were they with other people?
Depends on the individual and how well they think they can hide.
Okay.
More often than not, they will have their own truck. Because they do have their own sort of like handler or liaison, or however you want to phrase it. But there was always someone from guest relations that was kind of there to attend to their needs if necessary. A lot of the musicians, especially, they definitely keep away from individuals, and it's nothing against them. But yeah, Ariana Grande and Katy Perry were too. They both wrote it. They had their own cars.
I get that. All right. Do you have a favorite memory from your time working at Kilimanjaro?
I mean, that storm was definitely a big one.
Sure.
Favorite memory beyond that.
I mean, if that is your favorite memory, then that is your
that memory is interesting, because not only was it a crazy storm, there was a really fun time where, because we were still out in operation, where the ride path had gotten cleared for like the second time. Mm-hmm. But at that point, a lot of people had bailed from the ride itself, because Kilimanjaro's is all the way in the back of Animal Kingdom. So, rain will scare away the guests. But those that are brave and adventurous will still ride, and sometimes the wait times will be nothing. And what was nice is I had someone that had like a full like professional camera rig. Like they were there to be like essentially a safari journalist. And because there was no real traffic, like there was no people or trucks in motion, I got to really, and not to mention there were stops, I really got to have that person kind of have their day and be able to really like get their shots in this environment.
That's awesome.
So that was a really nice experience.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool that you were able to give somebody that experience and make magic, as they say. Well, Andrew, I'd just like to say on behalf of everybody here at Parkgoers Go, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and giving us a little bit of insight about your work and what you did at Kilimanjaro Safari. So thank you so much for sitting down and talking with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity, honestly.
And that's it for this episode of Parkgoers Go. How'd you like this interview? Do you have any questions for Andrew about Kilimanjaro Safaris? And what's something new that you learned about the ride? Let us know. Send us a comment on Instagram or head to our website. And otherwise, this is another episode of Parkgoers Go and another interview. Check back in next week for our next episode. And until then, see ya. Or as they say on Kilimanjaro Safari, Kwaherini. And we'll see you at the parks. Bye. Kwaherini. Thanks for listening to this episode of Parkgoers Go. Catch our new episodes every Wednesday and catch up on our old episodes on Spotify. For any updates and new information about the theme parks or the podcast, follow us on Instagram at Parkgoers Go or visit our website at www.parkgoersgo.com. This episode was produced by Logan, Nathaniel, and Dustin, and edited by me, Dustin. Our theme song was created by John Riedel. You can follow Logan Nathaniel's theme park adventures on Instagram at Parkgoers. And you can follow me at Mr. Parkgoer. If you'd like to reach out to us, visit our website and send a comment or a compliment or a critique, but not so much the critique. And until then, see you in the parks.